All right. Hey, everyone. So this is just a little bonus episode. And, what I wanted to do is just announce that my new book, From Stuck to Unstuck, is now available. And we have a special link down right in the notes of this show here. And so you can just click on that and to get your copy. And what we're doing is when you get your copy, we actually are going to give you the audiobook completely free as a special thank you and a special gift. And, I wanted to just make a quick episode about really the why I wrote this book and kind of really like just the story behind it. So, you know, when I first, I mean, I don't even know how many years ago it was now, but when I first, really started to try to help in the community of OCD and anxiety of people who are struggling, first thing I ever did was I wrote a book actually, and it was called OCD Victory. And that doesn't exist anymore. And so, but and to be transparent, like it was the best I could do at that time, but there was so much that I hadn't learned that, a lot of what I did was I just regurgitated, a lot of what everyone else had said. And I didn't really have a lot of unique perspective that I had brought to it. So after, again, working with people for, 10 years, I guess probably more than that now, probably 15 years. Um, what I've done in this book and what I've really aimed to do is try to make a very concise book, and I think the total for the book is like 95 pages or something like that. And the reason is because there's so much dense stuff out there that go into all this stuff that you don't it's not that you don't need it, but I mean, it's not that it's not beneficial, but it's not something that's necessary. And I understand it's everyone's bringing their own ways of trying to help, but what this book specifically is the thing that I would have handed to my 18-year-old self when I was stuck. That's why I wrote this. Because when I was 18, I mean, I was so lost that I mean, just the idea of getting through the day was unbearable sometimes. I mean, it felt unbearable. I remember. And when I think about that, I ask myself, is like, hey, what did that kid need? You know, that was all. I was like, okay, if I could go back in time and give this to him, right? Like, what would it say? How would I explain the issue, right? Like, what would I tell the person? What would I tell him to do? You know, to get better. And that's what this book is. You know, it was. I mean, that's the reason I wrote it, is because I know that there's someone else out there that was like that, or that's experiencing what I was experiencing, and this would be the thing that I'd say, hey, read this. You know, and again, if you can't read, if the stuff too sad, here's the audiobook. Like, let's make this as simple as possible. Let's streamline exactly what you need to know, and really contextualize the problem correctly, and then let's start implementing a solution. And the AAA response, obviously, I believe is a solution that, you know is not, is not taught well. Like that concept of the AAA response, moving to a solution as opposed to solving a problem, is very, very different modalities. And instead of telling, don't ruminate, don't analyze, don't do all these safety behaviors, the AAA response is, hey, what do we do? Right? Because this is what a lot of people ask me. They say, well, okay, I've heard about ERP and I understand I'm not supposed to do my compulsions or safety behaviors, but what do I do instead? And that's really what the AAA response is. And that's why, I've spent so much time kind of crafting it. And we've really, it's the foundational piece of my own recovery, as well as, my clients, because most of the behaviors people engage in are mental. And so instead of saying, don't do this, right, it's like, do this. And as an indirect result, we're eliminating the behaviors. And because the mind, when you're really afraid, really anxious, it wants to have a direction. It wants to know what to do. And that's what the AAA response is about. And that's why in the book, From Stuck to Unstuck, I not only, explain the issue from how I perceive it, but explain safety behaviors, but I also talk about the AAA response and, really go into, hey, these are the 3 steps of the AAA response. This is what to do. But I think this is my favorite part of the book, and I wanted to explain this here because this idea was just never explained to me. And it's this idea of consciousness. And in chapter 6, I break down this idea of consciousness, and I explain why before we talk about the tools. So the one thing I don't want you to do if you're listening to this is go and buy the book and skip right to the AAA response. Take the time to go through the book. It's designed so you could read it in an afternoon, right? But do that for yourself. Don't cheat yourself from this. And consciousness is everything when it comes to like getting better from OCD and anxiety, because you can't, like Albert Einstein famously said, right? You can't solve a problem from the same level of consciousness which it was created. What most people do is they start, trying to take all these tools and try to, whack-a-mole their intrusive thoughts and feelings. The way that the AAA response is effective and the way it's going to work for you is when it's applied from a higher level of consciousness. Understanding that one piece is critical to your success. And again, we talk about it in chapter 6. And so, and that I think is just one of the things that I really want to emphasize about this book because I like that chapter alone. If I was able to go tell my 18-year-old self, that would have saved, years of my suffering, because I just I was never able, no one ever explained that to me. And that was never articulated to me. It wasn't until I finally realized that everything started to make sense. So anyways, this is just a little bonus episode that I wanted to create because I wanted to obviously tell you about the book, get it in your hands, and we wanted to give you the audiobook as a free gift for getting your copy of the book. And then obviously there's other opportunities, to work with me on deeper levels, whether it's my workshops or my 12-week program. And so we have those available as well. But I think this is such a great starting point of saying hey, look, you're stuck. Here's how we get unstuck. And trying to make as concise of a roadmap as I can for someone. And again, and if that's you listening to this, then this book was written for you. And it was written for the 18-year-old version of myself that was, sitting in his car, crying, not knowing what to do. You know what I mean? Just so lost and not the idea of going through the day was overwhelming. And I remember that so clearly. And so when, if I could go back and give something to that version of myself, this is what I would give, to definitely get them started on the right path. And so my hope is that, if you're struggling, that this helps you, and that, and when you really get the concepts that I explain, hopefully you understand that foundational idea of consciousness, so that when you start applying the AAA response, it's just going to be that much more effective. So thank you for taking the time to listen to this. Again, get your copy by just clicking the little link down below or going to restoredminds.com/book. Thank you, and I wish you guys a great week.